This is our review of the new Merida Reacto. Now outwardly, the new one looks very similar to the previous model, which came out in 2015. Both bikes share a number of features, such as the oversized down tube and the NACA fastback tube profiles, which are designed to reduce drag. There's also this flattened top tube and also the dropped seat stays. And the new bike continues to make use of direct mount brakes, front and rear, and the rear brake is still located under the bottom bracket, as is the case with the caliper version, but there's now also a disc brake version too. But the new model has gone on a diet, with Merida claiming that the frame is 240 grams lighter than the previous version, while they've also managed to save 38 grams in the fork and 65 grams in the seat post. The new Reacto is sleeker than the previous one though, and Merida are now making use of Vision's Metron all-in-one piece cockpit, which is really cool to see. So this certainly tidies things up at the front end. And I also like how they've improved the aerodynamics of the fork and head tube area by sort of having this really nice integration of how it flows from the fork into the head tube. I'm also a fan of the cable routing, which has been tidied up as well, so that helps reduce a little bit of drag. Merida is continuing to make use of the BB386 Evo bottom bracket, which is yet another bottom bracket amongst the sea of bottom brackets that exist, but it is a really versatile one and gives you a lot of options with regards to chain sets and power meters should you want to fit something else. But it's worth bearing in mind that because of the bottom bracket mounted rear brake, that means that some crank arm power meters are not compatible, such as stages, for example, as it will clash with where the rear brake sticks out. The Reacto comes in two different geometries, and each of those geometries has a different layup, as well as being available in both rim brake and disc brake versions, as previously mentioned. So here we have the Team E model, which is the top of the range in Merida's lineup. And this uses the CF4 frame set. And this is also shared with the 9000 model and the 8000 model. Now the CF4 frame set features a more aggressive geometry with a longer top tube and a slightly shorter head tube. And this is the same geometry and spec frame as used by Vincenzo Nibali and the rest of the Bahrain Merida Pro team. The rest of the models in Merida's range feature the more affordable CF2 frame set, and this includes the Merida Reacto 6000, which we reviewed previously on our website. Now this differs from the CF4 in that it features a slightly heavier, less expensive carbon fibre layup, but it's also got a bit more of a relaxed position, so it's a little bit shorter in the top tube and a little bit higher in the head tube, but it still remains an aggressive and fun and fast bike to ride. It's still an aero bike. For £3,000 you can get the Reacto 6000, which comes with Ultegra mechanical and hydraulic disc brakes, but for £8,000 you can get the Team E model we have here. Now this is an absolute out and out super bike, top of the range beast, and as a result it comes with everything you'd expect. So you've got full Jura Ace Di2 throughout, including the chain set and the brakes, and also the Vision Metron one-piece cockpit, which is rather expensive if you were to buy it separately. I've also got these rather tasty deep section fulcrum speed carbon clinchers, but also some nice touches such as the KMC light chain as well. And I should point out that isn't really dirty and covered in grease, it is actually black. It's painted black. It comes black with the diamond light coating on it. So yeah, I have been taking care of this bike. You also get, top quality tyres with it. So you've got the 25mm Continental Grand Prix 4000s front and rear, and also this rather nice paint job, which although a little Marmite, I have to say I really quite like it. The sort of nice metallic dark blue purple with the red and the gold flashes all over it. It's a nice change from all the sort of black bikes that you tend to see everywhere these days. And yeah, I'm a fan. But the thing I'm sure you're all wanting to know is, how fast is it? I mean, this is an aero bike after all. So we have actually performed some independent aero testing on this bike. So if you want to see that in more detail, then you can check out the video that we've done before, that is which pro has the fastest bike 3, where you can see us testing it against some other leading bikes that are available at the moment. but I'm going to break down some of the key data for you here. The interesting thing for me was that when Merida launched this bike, they made the claim that it was 20 watts faster at 45 kilometers an hour than their Sculptura bike, which is a lightweight climbing alternative. Now, the cool thing was that when we tested it, we found that this claim was backed up. It was indeed there or thereabouts 20 watts faster than the Sculptura at that speed. So I thought that was pretty cool. But how fast is it compared to the competition? Well, our testing suggested that it's right up there with some of the most slippery bikes available to humanity at the moment. So testing suggested that the fastest bikes we've done are the Trek Madone and also the Scott Foil. And the Venge Vias is up there as well. But the Reacto seems to be pretty much there or thereabouts with those bikes, just slightly below. But you really are starting to split hairs with the wattage differences that we're observing. Science aside, when you're actually riding the bike on the road, it certainly feels a lot faster than riding a non-aero bike such as the Sculptura. You can tangibly feel the difference. And let's be honest, 20 watts at 45 kilometers an hour is a huge amount of difference when you actually think about it. Now, the other thing to remember is that Vincenzo Nibali, we think he watched our video, he actually won Milan-San Remo on this bike, and people have commented saying that he wouldn't have been able to win Milan-San Remo in the style that he did by such a small margin if he'd been on the Sculptura. So how does the Reacto ride? Well, the overwhelming thing that you notice the first time you jump on it is how stiff the front end is, and in particular the head tube. It really is standout on this bike compared to other bikes I've ridden. As soon as you get out of the saddle and you start going hard and pushing down on the bars, the head tube and the fork really are a really great package on this bike. And everyone loves a stiff front end. With the Fulcrum Speed wheels that come with the bike, I've not noticed any brake rub with the bottom bracket rear mounted brake, but it is worth pointing out that other people have noticed this. I know that when the bike was launched and they had DT Swiss wheels fitted, some people were complaining of brake rub then, but with this wheel set, I haven't had any issues. It is worth pointing out though that a lot of people do still complain about the placement of a bottom bracket mounted rear brake, although it can be more aerodynamic. There are a couple of little things that bug me about the bike though. So the first thing is the Vision Metron cockpit. Now, it looks really cool and it's certainly aerodynamic, but it is inflexible with regards to adjustment. You know, if you want to change the stem length but keep the bar length and stuff like that, then it's quite hard to get the size that you want, and it means you have to replace the whole thing. The other annoying thing about it is that the junction box is hidden for the Di2, is hidden inside the stem here underneath a plate that you would need to unscrew and get off every time you want to charge it. And this is going to be a pain. It'd be much nicer to have the junction box conveniently located in the down tube here, as we see on some other bikes like the new Madone, but also perhaps in the end of the bar end as well, as we've seen on some other bikes such as the Scott Foil. The prospect of having to get your Phillips screwdriver out every time you want to charge the Di2 battery or even just check the battery level is a real faff, and it's something that's worth pointing out you avoid if you go for one of the more affordable models such as the 6000, as these all come with a separate traditional bar and stem, so there's much more adaptability there, and in some ways I'd say that makes them better options. There are some other really cool features on the Reacto though as well that I want to point out. So I'm a big fan of the seat post clamp. It can sound like quite a boring part of the bike, but it's really, really well designed, and it's really practical and really easy to access, and it works. It's just a simple Allen bolt in there. There's no covers or things that you have to remove. It's just well designed. I'm also a fan of the way that the saddle clamps to the seat post. The actual system can be flipped around so that you can get a lot of adjustment with fore and aft saddle positioning, which is cool. And also you get sprint shifters on this bike. I mean, like, how cool is that? But they're not just cool, they're actually really useful for changing gear when you're sprinting or in the drops. Something else I'm keen to stress is that although you do have some cables sticking out here at the front of the bike, you do have much greater practicality from this than having the total cable integration that we see on bikes such as the Venge Vias and the Trek Madone. You know, traveling with those bikes becomes an absolute nightmare, whereas having cables exposed like this is slightly less aerodynamic, but it's just so much more practical and so much more easy to live with, and is actually what I would prefer myself if I was getting a bike. Merida's head designer actually put a figure on this, and he reckons that having the cables exposed here at the front accounts for just 1.5 watts of drag that's added to the overall aerodynamics of the bike. Comfort can be the Achilles heel of aero road bikes, with many of them being really uncomfortable and chattery on long rides, but the Merida Reacto is commendable in this regard. I took it on some really long rides, around 100 miles, and I felt like I wasn't getting beaten up at all, even on some crap surfaces. It's not the comfiest bike in the world, but it's certainly fine for riding on long rides. And there are some features built into it as well. So you've got the polymer insert that you can see there on the seat post, and this is a more refined version of a similar feature that was on the previous Reacto. And there's also things that Merida claim to have done with the layup to help improve comfort as well. Like on the previous version, they put flax fibres into the carbon, which were supposedly there to help dampen out vibrations. In terms of weight, the Reacto we have here in a size medium large is hitting the scales at 7.3 kilos, which is really commendable for an aero bike that's fitted with these deep section carbon clinches. You could definitely reduce the weight if you were to switch to a lighter saddle and also some tubular wheels, easily to around 7 kilos dead. Now, if you were to go for the more affordable Reacto 6000 model, which we mentioned previously, then that hits our scales at around 8.4 kilograms. So about 1.1 kilos heavier for £5,000 less. So it depends where your priorities lie, but it does come with disc brakes, that one as well. So what is our verdict on the new Reacto? Well, it is an absolutely superb bike. If you're in the market for an aero bike, then the Reacto is definitely worth consideration and should definitely be on your shortlist. The front end stiffness around the head tube and the fork in particular are absolutely standout amongst all the aero bikes I've ridden, but you know, other areas of the bike are very stiff and very responsive as well. I really like the geometry of the more aggressive CF4 model we have here, but if you want something more relaxed, then the CF2 is also a great bike to ride. I hope you found this review useful, and if you have, why not give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the Cycling Weekly channel. And while you're there, check out the Which Pro Has the Fastest Bike videos, including Which Pro Has the Fastest Bike 3, because that's the one that features the Merida Reacto.